Welcome in to the Paul Kuharsky podcast, part of 440 Sports. I'm Paul Kuharsky of paulkuharsky.com. If you've listened before, you know the drill. I'm contractually obligated to mention my name 3 times very quickly off the top. I've done so, pleasing my sponsor, Jasper's, great restaurant on West End in downtown Nashville. You should check them out. Gather, play, eat, drink. You can do all those things there. I do. You should. Tell them I sent you. What we're going to do here is I'm going to defend Ryan Tannehill, much to some of your chagrin, most of your chagrin, based on the temperature taking that I've done. I'm going to deconstruct Will Levis. I hate the idea of the Titans taking Will Levis, even if he fell to them at 11. We're going to celebrate Jeffery Simmons, and it's going to be neat. It's going to be tidy, and we're going to get underway right here, right now. Ryan Tannehill. Look, the problem everybody has with Ryan Tannehill, the problem everybody should have with Ryan Tannehill is that he is a playoff failing quarterback. He didn't get the Titans to the playoffs last year, in large part because he injured his ankle twice and needed surgery. But I don't know that we could blame him for the Titans not getting to the playoffs. He missed 5 games. They lost 4 of those. He had them at 7-3 at one point. Things crumbled, one of those being his health, but the health around him as well. Let's talk a little bit about what went on with Ryan Tannehill last year. In his first 12 games, they were 6-6. His percentage was the lowest it has been as a Titan since he took over during the 2019 season, 65.2. 211.3 passing yards per game, the lowest in his time. No fourth quarter comebacks or game-winning drives. So those are all bad developments. But there were some good developments. Yards per attempt, 7.8. That was 5th in the league. It's pretty good. 9.6 is his all-time high. That was in that incredible 2019 stretch. Remarkable. Yards per completion on par with 2020, the great offensive year, right at 12. Passer rating was 94.6, up from 2021, not as good as 2019 or 2020. His TD rate was the same. His interception rate was down. His sack percentage was up, which you would expect based on the awful offensive line that was playing in front of him. I'm not offering absolution for Ryan Tannehill, who was hardly great last year. But that offensive line allowed 33 sacks in 12 games. He had Dennis Daly starting 15 games at left tackle. Aaron Brewer at left guard, who was overmatched almost all of the time. And Nicholas Petit-Frere at right tackle, who, given a normal line, we would have been talking about every week as the weak link. He had great fortune in that he was playing on a line where Dennis Daly was the main topic of conversation and Aaron Brewer was the second topic of conversation. So those 3 linemen were really quite bad for Ryan Tannehill. Treylon Burks, who was drafted to replace a top flight receiver in A.J. Brown, missed 6 games and was slow to come along. We only saw flashes of how good he could be. 2 guys that the team added to be primary pass catchers and were the top 2 guys in receptions on the team, Robert Woods and Austin Hooper, were huge disappointments in terms of their ability to contribute on a steady basis. And Woods couldn't get open on any kind of steady basis. These are the sorts of things that are going to hurt a veteran quarterback who's not an elite guy, who's not going to carry a team single-handedly, who needs a supporting cast. And they talked about being great around him, surrounding him with better talent. And what they did is went and had worse talent and then injured talent. Ryan Tannehill had a 97.9 passer rating in the first 8 games of the season. Then he had 88.7 passer rating in the final 4 games of his season. So if you give me a 97.9 passer rating, what he had in the first half, quote unquote, of the in a 16-game season, which most of us are still used to. I would take that. I would take those numbers on a team like the Titans. We'll get into the hunt for an elite quarterback. They were 7-3 at one point. So what happened? Well, we just hit the injuries. First off, with regard to Ryan Tannehill, everybody was out on Ryan Tannehill the year prior when he played so poorly in the 2021 season-ending divisional round playoff loss to Cincinnati, right? With the 3 interceptions. When the defense sacked Joe Burrow 9 times. And the Titans should have won at home and then hosted the AFC Championship game. The only team with a bye in the AFC with the first year of 1 bye and the extra playoff team. He was terrible in that game, reinforcing the idea that he wasn't a playoff quarterback. The expectation was Titans will come back, they'll get back to the playoffs, and we'll take the temperature on Ryan Tannehill if he can get into the playoffs and finally carry this team somewhere in the playoffs, because he had failed to, in the year they made the AFC Championship game run, it was on Derrick Henry's back. Then he couldn't mount anything in the championship game in Kansas City. Came back a year later, the whole offense was bad against Baltimore, but he didn't do anything and threw a game-losing interception at the end. And then compounded with a terrible, terrible effort against Cincinnati. I said, to me, last season coming into it, I thought, well, they'll probably do most of the same stuff. I don't think they'll be the number 1 seed, but I expected them to win the division again or get to the playoffs. And then the question was, what could Ryan Tannehill do in the playoffs? I expected not much, but I expected him to get there and have a chance to try to rewrite his playoff script. What happened is they lost 7 in a row. They were 7-3 at one point. They lost 7 in a row. 3 of those games were him. 1 was Malik Willis. 2 were Joshua Dobbs. What else happened to our feelings about Ryan Tannehill? We saw, again, great quarterbacks in the AFC, in the regular season in particular. Patrick Mahomes goes without saying. Joe Burrow, I think now, is also there, goes without saying. Josh Allen's team took a step back, but still saw some very good play from him. A healthy Tua, I think, did more than a lot of us, certainly than I imagined he could. If his concussion problems are behind him, you would hope he's a guy that can continue to do damage. Trevor Lawrence emerged. Ryan Tannehill was actually 6th in the AFC in passer rating, but Justin Herbert played well again and now gets a better offensive coordinator. Another thing that happened to Ryan Tannehill is that Trevor Lawrence emerged as the best quarterback in the division, as we expected he would when he was drafted. But his rookie year was such a disaster with Urban Meyer as his coach in Jacksonville. It took, a while in his second season with Doug Peterson as his coach for that team to start to emerge and for Trevor Lawrence to start to emerge. And then he won 2 head-to-head games with the Titans in short order that decided the AFC South and sent the Jaguars to the playoffs and created a team that's now the favorite in the AFC South as opposed to the Titans. But in the playoffs, this is important when you're considering how you feel about Ryan Tannehill and how we feel about AFC quarterbacks. And I'm right there. Titans are in bad shape in terms of how they stack up in the AFC, among the AFC talented young quarterbacks. But let's run through this exercise. And I'm not saying that Ryan Tannehill would have done anything in the playoffs, because he's not been a good playoff quarterback by any means. Patrick Mahomes had another great playoff run and went and won a Super Bowl. Joe Burrow in 3 games had 4 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. Josh Allen in 2 playoff games had 3 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. Playoff passer ratings over 100 in 2022 season. Mahomes, Brock Purdy of the NFC, Kirk Cousins of the NFC, Dak Prescott of the NFC. The second best passer rating in the AFC last year for an AFC quarterback, Tyler Huntley, 92.0. I tend to feel, because of the vibe around the team and because of how well it did in 2021, that the losing streak, the 7-game losing streak to end last season, was the end of this incarnation of the team, and thus the end of Tannehill, because he's the figurehead of that team. But I'm pretty sure the Titans don't agree with you. It could be wrong. Something could be coming in the draft here that changes that. And we know how expensive he is. It's cap numbers, $36 million. They can save, 18 and eat 17 or vice versa, with a move with him. Though the market for him is gone so long as the Jets and Packers deal happens with Aaron Rodgers. We've seen cap and age-induced turnover on this team. But if he's the starting quarterback in September, and I would say when he's the starting quarterback in September, all is not lost for the Tennessee Titans with Ryan Tannehill, based on some of the numbers I've talked about here. And presuming that he's healthy again. And he's been a sturdy guy for them outside of this ankle injury last year. Even if they draft a guy coming up here, it's conceivable that very conceivable that Ryan Tannehill is the starting quarterback in week 1 in September, as they sit an Anthony Richardson or a Will Levis. I'm rooting against both of those guys, but they sit one of those guys behind him and let him play out his last year or renegotiate it as part of an extension. Ryan Tannehill's not dead. And the Titans could still win with Ryan Tannehill. The Titans could still win their way into the playoffs with Ryan Tannehill. I know the allure of going and getting a guy who could be one of the, elbow to elbow with those top AFC guys is so strong. But at least 2 of these guys coming out are not guarantees. None of these guys coming out are guarantees. There's no Trevor Lawrence in this draft. There's no Joe Burrow in this draft. Young and Stroud have better chances than Levis and Richardson in my eyes and in the eyes of many. But, the Titans ultimately would love to have a guy like that. There's no guarantee you're getting one if you're drafting one of those guys this year. And they could still win with Tannehill if they could patch this offensive line, if they could find him some receivers, if they could give him a chance, and if they could play good defense. I know that formula gets tiresome, but it's still their best chance to win. At paulkoharski.com this week, Mike Herndon writes how Jackson Smith and Jigba is the Titans' best chance to get better quickly, because outside of quarterback, to him, the next most important position is wide receiver, and the Titans have to have somebody to pair with Treylon Burks. He thinks the Ohio State receiver is a perfect guy to do that with. You should, if you're not a member of the site, sign up immediately and go read this piece, which might have you walking away thinking, man, that might be my guy. It's a very convincing argument that Mike makes. And Blake Bedingfield, a day earlier, did capsules on, I think, 22 guys that he thinks could be attractive to the Titans at the wide receiver position, running through everybody in his stacked order, strengths and weaknesses, as to who he likes, doesn't like as much, how they would fit in with the Titans opposite Burks, how Kyle Phillips kind of factors into what may or may not go on there. So come check that out. Get a membership if you're not. $5.99 a month. You get what they write. You get what I write. And private video chat where you ask me questions, and we have a big time. A lot of big draft stuff coming up. You don't want to miss out on that. All of it brought to you by Jasper's, which is on West End in Nashville. It's a great spot. You could have a business lunch there. You could have a date there. You can bring your family there. And you can send the kids out, or you can go out yourself. They've got an area with all free games. You get free first to park for free. Then you can go outside. You can play Pop-A-Shot or shuffleboard, stuff like that. free. You don't have to dig quarters out of your pocket or find singles or anything like that. Had a big widescreen TV to catch the big game. And then a really good menu, appetizers, entrees, desserts, everything. If you can't stop by, there's a grab and go market. So you stop, grab something to take home. If that's the way you got to fly that night, great cocktail menu, good beers on tap. Really perfect situation for whatever kind of night or afternoon you need. So I encourage you to stop by Jasper's. I appreciate them sponsoring us. Stop by, tell them I sent you, and it'll work out great for everybody. I'm a big fan, so thanks to them. Will Levis. Will Levis is connected to the Titans, and it's not unreasonable. They had him in for one of their 30 visits. I hope that they found out that they don't like Will Levis that much, because it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So I'm going to run through a little bit of the good and the bad of Will Levis and why I don't like him, the idea of him for the Titans. The guy's got a good arm, a great arm probably. And he's got kind of quintessential quarterback size. He absolutely looks the part. He's got a quick release. He can stand in against pressure. He's tough, quality you want in a quarterback like that. He can slide side to side to deal with pressure nicely. He runs pretty well. The clips of him on his best runs, he looks fantastic. And he's good with the ball in his hands near the goal line for sure. On the other side of this, though, he's not the most instinctive guy by any means, which then affects the decision-making. And decision-making is one of the main things most people want in a quarterback. They want you to come into the league as a good decision-maker. And they also want you to come into the league accurate, and with a variety of touch to help you on accuracy. He's been short on some deep stuff, which calls into question his ability to anticipate things. He's not on time all the time. He can be out of rhythm, which all ties into this kind of anticipation and instinct question or theme. Pocket feel, while he'll stand in against the blitz and against pressure, some people call into question. And he has this swagger that, there have been a lot of reports has turned some teams off. He said at the combine, I'm going to go out there and show off my cannon. And then he didn't have a great combine workout. I listened just on my way home today to what Chris Sims said. Chris Sims, a one-time Titans quarterback who, obviously knows the position, talked through Levis's combine workout, and he wasn't particularly impressed with the way he threw the ball against air, in that combine setting after kind of bragging about what he was going to go out and do, which to me isn't a great look. He made more big plays under Liam Cohn 2 years ago. Liam Cohn, who came from the Rams, I believe, then went back to the Rams for Levis's last year. Now is back to Kentucky, ironically. And Cohn's, got some legitimate NFL stripes. So that's a good sign that he worked well with an NFL guy. He wasn't good with the guy in the interim, Rick Scangarello, who was fired during the season. And then in that good year with Cohn, he had Wan'Dale Robinson, the good receiver, and some linemen who graduated and went on to the league. So there's some encouraging signs there. And he had turf toe this last year for maybe the second half of the year, Levis. So that hurt him. Here's some numbers that were floating around about passes for the top four quarterbacks, the perceived top four quarterbacks, not counting Hendon Hooker, on passes of 20 yards or more in the air. I won't run through all the numbers. I just ran them through the passer rating calculator. This is from 2022. CJ Stroud, 122.4. Bryce Young, 121.5. Anthony Richardson, 114.5. Will Levis, 75.5. Will Levis, 16 for 39. That's 41% for 541 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions on passes of 20 or more yards in the air. That's very discouraging. These are from Zach Hicks. And he said that Levis's numbers, he went back, gave him the benefit of the doubt on the injury, went back and looked at what he did healthy in 2021 under Cohen, a better coach. 43.6%, 812 yards, 6 touchdowns, all good, with 6 interceptions. That added up to an 87.3 passer rate. Better, still not good. Still not as good as these other guys. Overall, against Power 5 competition, according to Pro Football Focus, he made 5 big-time throws last year. 5. That's minuscule. He threw for under 180 yards a game, 10 touchdowns against 7 picks, 62.2%. Faced a lot of pressure and threw into a lot of tight windows, those numbers tell us. It's not encouraging. Pro Football Focus also wrote about how his pro-con list right now looks a lot, sounds a lot like Josh Allen's pro-con list sounded when he was coming out of Wyoming. To me, Josh Allen's improvement when he got to the NFL is an outlier, right? You're not going to find many guys who come into the league and get better at the things that Josh Allen and Will Levis were bad at in college. The lack of anticipation and the inaccuracy. Those things are kind of baked into the cake by the time you come out of college. And it's rare that people get better at them when they get in the league, even with really good coaching. And the Bills have done a great job with Josh Allen, who has turned into an excellent, excellent NFL quarterback. So those things that PFF is writing about, spotty accuracy, one-speed thrower, that's another concern. Doesn't alter his touch depending on the throw. Will likely always struggle on touch passes with a short arm delivery and a bad habit of trying to do too much and force throws. So PFF says you could get Josh Allen out of that list of 4 qualities, or you could get Jake Locker. Titans have already had Jake Locker. Titans do not need another Jake Locker. And they didn't make a deal to go get Jake Locker. Now, I mentioned Mike Herndon's piece about Jackson Smith and Jigba earlier. Titans need a big-time wide receiver out of this draft. Now, this isn't loaded with a Jamar Chase, Devontae Smith, or Justin Jefferson. Though, maybe 1 or 2 of these guys of the top bunch turn out to be those kind of guys. But we're probably not seeing, it's pretty safe to say we're not going to see a wide receiver taken 6th overall in this draft. We don't know. There are a lot of GMs high in this draft that have no track record, and there could be all kinds of surprises. But the Titans, if they trade up to get Levis or Richardson or, even Stroud or Young, if somehow they fall to 3 and the Titans go ahead and make a deal with the Cardinals, are not going to be in position then to get the kind of wide receiver he needs. And they're going to be really hoping that a lower wide receiver pick really pans out. They're going to have thin resources between what they give up in this draft, what they give up in the next draft or 2 to be able to go get that quarterback, that kind of guy. Here's what, with regard to Will Levis, the thing I looked at closely with a lot of people that I read who are writers, granted, but scouting writers who watch these players very closely during college season, talk to scouts around the league, talk to coaches who've coached these guys and coached against these guys. I'm very curious about the comps, right? NFL Draft Buzz kind of gave a good comp and a bad comp for Will Levis. Josh Allen on the good side, who we just discussed a little bit. Mitch Trubisky on the bad side. Mel Kiper, very positive comp. Matthew Stafford. Well, if you can get yourself Matthew Stafford, I'd take that. But now the downturn. Blake Bedingfield, our friend who writes at the site, he said it's a hard comp, but he'd go with Blake Bortles, that he's Blake Bortles-like. Strong arm, good athlete, but inconsistent. Dane Brugler, who writes The Beast at The Athletic, and Matt Miller of ESPN both said Carson Wentz, and they both said the good and the bad of Carson Wentz. Well, I think the bad of Carson Wentz swallowed the good of Carson Wentz. Do you want your team to give up a whole bunch to go get Carson Wentz? I wouldn't. Lance Zerline said Jay Cutler. Do you want your team to give up a whole bunch to go get Jay Cutler? I don't. Gets worse. Draft Scout called him a big Baker Mayfield. No thanks. Pro Football Focus in its magazine that I downloaded. Jake Locker. Well, it was bad enough when you took Jake Locker at 8. Don't take him at 11, and sure don't trade up for him. Ben Solak and Danny Kelly of The Ringer. Same comp for Will Levis. Ryan Tannehill. Now look, Will Levis would be a lot cheaper than Ryan Tannehill. But if you're a Titans fan and you're craving your team, go out and get a guy who can be in the conversation with Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow and Josh Allen and whoever the next up-and-coming young great quarterbacks in the AFC may be. Why do you want him to take a guy who's being compared by some of the best draft analysts around to the quarterback you already have? It doesn't make sense to me. And I'm not saying these guys are dead on with Ryan Tannehill comparisons. They may be way off. Scares the hell out of me. Scares the hell out of me. Hard pass. Get yourself some linemen, some receivers. Worry about quarterback another time. Jasper's, your neighborhood bar and restaurant, done better. Check it out for me. I appreciate you doing so. Jeffery Simmons will finish up with. A lot of us have been telling you they'd sign him. I don't know why there was such a big panic. They didn't sign one premier player. That didn't mean they were going to then get in the habit of not signing their premier players. The money situation was going to be fine. They signed him earlier than I expected, frankly. He's really the lone tent pole guy on this team now. Now, not many teams have guys signed as far out as he's signed now through 2027. The only guy on the roster signed that will, if all goes well, walk into the new stadium for introductions. He and the first-round draft pick, provided the first-round draft pick has his fifth-year option exercised or is walking in there on a new contract, hopefully, if Rand Carthon hits on his first pick of his first draft. Harold Landry signed through 2026. He's coming right now off of a ACL tear. So you're hopeful that he'll be fine and still be playing. Kevin Byard has 2 more years at big money. We know they'd like him to be cheaper. You'd hope those are tent poles for a little longer. It's too early for Chig Okonkwo and Traylon Burks to say if they've got sustainable production, but you'd hope so. But it's a short list. Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill are in the last year of their deals. And you'd think the end is near for Derrick Henry. So they don't have a lot. And, who knows this? I mean, Jeffery Simmons is a great teammate. And but he also knows that there's a lot of change going on right now. And he talked about that at the press conference where the Titans kind of made his new deal official on Wednesday.
This morning, you know, it just, to me, I think the main thing is, just getting back around the guys, and I can't wait to get back around the guys. And, like I said, we're going to have a complete new team. A lot of these guys new to our team. I met Aziz is his name, right? Yeah, I met Aziz this morning, and I could tell already that, he's going to be good for us, just the talk we had this morning. And I'm excited, man. I'm excited to, because I've been on the contract here, so it's not like I'm new to this team. So I'm just excited to see how much more we could grow as a team and, get to our next step.
That was Aziz Al-Shair, who he was name checking with Rand Carthon in the front row there. Complete new team, Simmons says. So he's not pretending that there's a whole lot of continuity right now with what's going on, and actually defensively there is some continuity. I really respect Jeff Simmons for the way he played through the ankle injury last year without complaint, and even more so, the guy, he was a little weird about it during OTAs and right before training camp, maybe. And then one time during the season where he talked to a national reporter about the contract situation and then made it like it was weird that the rest of us followed up with questions about it. But he played for $2 million last year, which is maybe the most undervalued player in the NFL. And he didn't grumble about that either, which had to be hard to do. Now, all he needed to do was be patient ultimately through this. I don't think the social media thing is the way to go, but ultimately he was patient, and he got what he deserved. $66 million guaranteed, and now he's got the kind of expectations you would want. A centerpiece of your team who's getting that kind of money. He's got the right expectations.
Time for camp and just to get around these guys, they gonna understand quick kind of what's our culture and the way we want to play around here in Tennessee, and they're gonna get to our ultimate goal, and that's to win the championship around here. And I think, that's always the goal at the end of the season. So I think that's the next step as a team, and of course, I'm a guy who's gonna put the team first, and my mindset is we have to win, and we came up short too many times, and I think this season we have to work extremely harder, and just to get to our main goal.
They came up short too many times. I think everybody would agree with Jeffery Simmons on that one. A lot of the fan base doesn't have the confidence that they can work harder and do better this year, but I think they'd want to hear the best player on defense saying they can. And Jeffery Simmons definitely believes that. Thanks for joining me on the Paul Kuharsky podcast. I will talk to you again soon. Thanks to Jaspers. Go check him out. In the meantime, you know what I'm going to tell you, and I hope it echoes in your head. Don't block the box, but be sure to lock your locks.